part of goals, as I mentioned, is kind of figuring out the why, but it's also opening yourself up and challenging yourself. You may find that sometimes there's a limitation of things you believe you can and cannot accomplish. And so one of the things to think about when you're creating what your goals are, and I don't expect you to necessarily have come into the call with your goals in mind. Part of the course is the goal of this kind of goal lesson is to help you figure out what those are. And take your time. You have lived however long to get you to where you are now. And if you've had certain habits for years or decades, just like overuse injuries, like, well, if you've been a runner for 10 years, it took you 10 years to kind of have your knees start to hurt because you run all the time. So it's going to take a while to undo that. So if you've had a certain belief in a certain perspective for a certain while, it may take a little bit of time. Don't expect you to wake up tomorrow and have all of this figured out. But that's why we're building this team, and that's why we're starting to question and figure out some of these things. So part of goals is figuring out what's your yeses and nos. And the thing I would challenge you to do is, I forget the guy's name, but there was a guest on the Tim Ferriss show, and he had this expression, which is either it's hell yes or no, and there's nothing else. So you're either like super psyched or you're not. And so I would encourage you to feel the same way. It's either a yes or it's a no. And if it's a maybe, it isn't a maybe, it's a no. So if you have some things that you're thinking of, I don't know if I want to do that, or I don't know if I want to stop, I don't know if I want to start, those are probably no's. You don't want to stop doing that. Unless it's a really strong yes, like, yes, I don't want to do that anymore. Or, yes, I totally want to start doing that. Those are things that are lighting you up. Because again, being psyched to stop something is just as powerful as being psyched to start something. But those are going to be strong feelings. So lean into those, because those are probably the things that are really important to you. And even if it is something as singular as, I'm going to start doing push-ups every day, that specific goal really spills over into the larger change, which is probably something more to, I want to have a more active, healthy lifestyle, or I want to have the daily routine be different than what it is now. So if that's a yes, then I would encourage you to create goals and do some digging around that side. But if it's a maybe, or if it's a no, then it's probably not something you're super psyched about. But the other thing that comes along with yeses and nos is figuring out, like, where is the path to yes? So for instance, if it's not a really strong no, if it's a maybe, well, how could the maybe be a yes? So for instance, going back to the push-ups, well, I try to do the push-ups in the morning, it doesn't work. Does that mean you stop? No, maybe you figure out, well, how do I make this work? Maybe I look at my schedule. Maybe I look at my day. Maybe I look at, it's hard for me to get going in the morning, so doing stuff like that in the morning doesn't work for me. I have a lot more energy at the end of the day, or I kind of, it takes me all morning to get going, so I'm going to set myself up for success and try and experiment with more exercise later in the day. So that might be a way for you to navigate and negotiate with yourself with, how can I make this work? Instead of just saying, it didn't work, I'm going to throw it out. So that's just a very specific example because I brought push-ups up earlier, but I would really encourage you, kind of like the hell yes or no, to be binary about some of these things. Again, going back to goals, if we want to change everything, we're probably not going to change anything. How can we come up with a couple really powerful changes which will spill over into all the aspects of our lives? How can we be very binary about, this is a hell yes or it's a no? How can we figure out to get to the yes? How can we negotiate, just like if you are trying to make plans with someone and they want Italian and you want Thai, and you're both like, well, we both want to eat, so we're not going to not eat. How are we going to figure this out? Let's negotiate. Let's take the Well, maybe we go to Thailand. Well, maybe we go to Thai. Well, maybe we both do something else. Well, maybe we don't eat together. How can we figure out what's the path to yes there? And so my hope is that by diving into the questionnaires and doing some of these exercises with yourself, and by taking some time, you can think about what's really important to you. Because again, this is about you and your goals. So I want to leave all the other things we've got going on in our lives, all the tumultuous stuff that's been going on this year. I'm going to put that aside and just say, I'm going to sit down and just do some kind of deep work with myself, what I believe, what I really want, and then how can I build something that'll get me to that place.
Now I sit upon this mountain, breathing cleaner air than before.